Okay, so we're actually doing this for a second time. The first time we did this video, there was construction going on. It ended up bleeding through the microphone. So we're going to do Lunara, who I believe was one of the first that I did, because I believe Lunara right now is one of the best ranged assassins in the game. Can fit into basically every single game. Works really well overall, I think, as a ranged carry ever since they made the scaling changes to the poison. So that makes things a lot easier to have value. A lot of times before it was wait till you hit 16 as Lunara and then you can do damage. That was never really that fun. Still post 16 she does a lot of damage, but if you're wondering about the scaling at about 19 to 20, that's when the break point is. So it's less damage on your poison at that point late game, but you'll have talents that affect it. But everything before that is stronger, which means Lunara has a much stronger early game. Makes her really good. You know the base kit. Your W slow is going to be the most important part of this. Having a 40% slow on a hero, yes, it decays, but a 40% slow on a ranged assassin, which you just have to auto attack somebody to be able to proc that, is really nice. Her Nature's Toxin, of course, is what it's all about. Auto attack damage. I know before we get into the talents, if you're getting here and you're like, oh, I'm not going to watch the whole thing, stop thinking her auto attack damage is where it damages, because it's not really. We're going to talk about that with the build. She has a pretty decent build diversity in a few areas. For the most part, it's pretty linear. At level 1, all of these are pretty much how can I help my team or how can I help myself. I love natural perspective. There's almost no map where I'm not going to get value out of this. Like, I can find out where everybody's going to be. I can kill people behind gates. If they hop in a bush, if they go around the corner and play fog appropriately, I can still see them. Natural perspective just gives me so much vision. Information based on vision is one of the most crucial aspects of the game, which is why minimap is really important, and just having a general understanding of how things work and having that vision on Dragonshire Battlefield, things where there's small areas. Any map, I think natural perspective works, because if they hop into a bush or run away from you, you can't auto attack them again. And that does make it more difficult if you can't auto attack in there. And then all of a sudden you get rocked, or they get away. So natural perspective is good. Sentinel Wisp, I don't mind on maps like Infernal if you're just looking at it. I normally reserve this for more of the stealth heroes that are out there. It can be good on maps like Infernal where you can cover a giant area from a safe bush. This isn't an every game one. I know there are people that do like this, but I'm pretty active. I'm auto attacking a lot as Lunara, which you have to be moving as Lunara. You have to utilize that. It's a little bit weird to get used to from what I gather from a lot of people because of her weird movement style. But once you get the A moving down for Lunara, she has the base movement speed, which makes her really good as a ranged auto attacker because she can move at higher speed than most other heroes, and you can just continue to auto and spread that poison. Natural perspective, hippity hoppity, don't even think about it. Don't be like, don't do it. Level 4, there was a debate on Reddit not too long ago about which level 4 talent is good. I actually think Siphoning Toxin and Nature's Culling are both good. Where is Nature's Culling good and where is Siphoning Toxin good? This is a pretty healthy debate. If I have a Jaina and a Johanna on my team on Tomb of the Spider Queen, Nature's Culling, it's kind of overkill at that point. But on maps like Battlefield of Eternity, Tomb of the Spider Queen, Alterac Pass is probably the one where I almost always pick Nature's Culling. All of these can be good. However, I know people look at Siphoning Toxin and they say it's not a lot of healing. But if I'm playing in certain game types, or I know it could be I don't need the wave clear and I'm on Alterac Pass because there's such a long fight on the objectives away from lanes, or maybe I have an Uther healer. Maybe I don't have the priority healing from a healer that I need. Siphoning Toxin to me fills that role so that I don't need that micromanagement from another player that's in the healer role that's going to keep me alive. It's not a ton of healing, don't get me wrong, but it is enough to trickle and keep you alive in a lot of situations. I do think Nature's Culling works on basically every map. If my team doesn't have a lot of wave clear, or it's even average wave clear, Nature's Culling is really good. The maps where it shines, obviously, Tomb of the Spider Queen, defending on Alterac Pass, this helps on camps. Battlefield of Eternity, this can help on. Again, there's only so much that this can do over time. There's just a lot of different ways to utilize Nature's Culling because wave clear is so good. Lunara doesn't have great wave clear. She can definitely dot things up, but it's not fast. With Nature's Culling, this does help out a lot. You can tag things post level 4, really do some damage, and then it's much easier wave clear. But it's really hard to decide, do I need Siphoning Toxin? Do I need Nature's Culling? And that's always going to be a healthy debate. I think Siphoning Toxin is okay. Anybody that tells you otherwise, I think doesn't really play Lunara a lot. Nature's Culling is always going to be good on pretty much every map because wave clear is important. Obviously, one is more team fight oriented than the other, so decide on that. Don't really worry about Blossom Swell. Your Q should be hitting, and all of these are going to be more valuable overall. Level 7, this is the really big debate, I think, for me in terms of where is your damage coming from. Wild Vigor in old competitive, which Lunara was never really picked in competitive, but when she was, it was because you would get the extra auto attack damage and pair this with level 16 for the extra auto attack range. I think this is the weakest of the talents by far. Splintered Spear, I think, is generally the #1 pick for a lot of reasons. Your W has a big slow on it. You can pair this later to get more overall damage. This is the one that I like. You can hit up to 4 enemies. For those that don't know the trick, you can press Q anywhere on the map. Your next auto attack will hit 4 enemies, no matter if it was 30 seconds ago or 3 seconds ago. And then if it was more than the 8 seconds that you have on your Q that is going on here, you can walk into a fight, auto attack, press Q again, and auto attack again. And you've now hit potentially 8 people in a span of 1 to 1.5 seconds just by queuing before you ever got there, auto attacking, Q auto, and now all of a sudden you've hit 8 targets or, the same 4 targets twice. And that makes your damage instant impact in a team fight. So remember, you can do that before you ever get to a team fight and walk in with those bonus auto attacks, which also applies the Nature's Toxin. But Splintered Spear, always good against heroes like Tyrande, Ana, Uther, more of the single target heals. Where I have found this difficult is against healers, and I do think Lucio can be poked down over time. Lucio, Stukov are a little more difficult to run this, which is where Choking Pollen can come in. Noxious Blossom deals 100% more damage to enemies afflicted with Nature's Toxin, increased to 150% against enemies with 3 stacks. You should always be A-moving and auto-attacking, even if it's just a tank. You need to keep constant pressure and be very active as a Lunara. You don't have to necessarily make the big pog plays by using Leaping Strike and getting onto the backline. You can very much poke down a tank all that you want. It works really well. When you think about the damage, it's 160 damage baseline, which is pretty limited. But when you now turn that into 150% damage, at this point you've scaled to level 7, so we don't have the exact numbers in front of us. That does make it a lot more appealing to do that damage. And for something on 8-second cooldown, that's not bad. If you can hit more than 1 target, that's cool. Again, don't think about Blossom Swell. It's a bit of a trap. Choking Pollen can be good to whittle down some of the frontliners to do bonus damage against frontliners. This is a skill shot, so if you do miss it, it's kind of a dead talent. Auto attacking, you're only going to miss these if you're blinded, which, for what it's worth, credit to whoever you're playing against, or if you didn't hold your auto attack after you got hit with a Johanna shield glare, that's on you at that point. But it does happen. Choking Pollen, I think, can be good for single target damage. Wild Vigor, I'm not a big fan of because I don't feel that a lot of people are going to get the true value out of the 7/16 combo. Where you can get the consistent, the value there is Splintered Spear can be an every game pick. Doesn't matter if there's a Lucio on the other team. It's just a matter of, do I have another, if I have another single target damage dealer, if I have another sustained damage dealer, Choking Pollen feels less appealing. If I want to be able to control other heroes, if I think about what you can do with 4-person spread, 3 people average, 2 people probably what you're normally going to hit with Splintered Spear, and I hit W and I hit a 30% slow on 2 to 4 targets, that's pretty good. That's pretty good. It does decay, but we'll talk about that in just a second. Leaping Strike, there was a time where I thought Thornwood Vines was good. Not really good, but it was good on maps where you needed wave clear, things like Tomb of the Spider Queen. You could just play at a nice safe distance, But as metas evolve and plays change, Leaping Strike, I think, is a clear #1 pick. This has unstoppable frames. That's the one thing that is really important. You have unstoppable frames when you use this, which means you can dodge a lot of CC. You can utilize this to get out of danger. You can use this to like walk around and then Leaping Strike back to your side. This gives you mobility that you don't have as Lunara. It gives you unstoppable that you have 2 charges of, so you can play around that. And so Leaping Strike, single target damage as well. You can do a lot of damage in a very short burst against people. Leaping Strike gives you that value. I think this is really, really strong, and it's almost never good to pick Thornwood Vines. There is times where, because this spreads more damage, this spreads more dots, where it could be good against that Uther style, but generally an Uther style is a more aggressive style. So Leaping Strike is more beneficial because you're going to be dealing with people coming at you. Again, I think Leaping Strike, for many reasons, is the superior choice to Thornwood Vine. Thornwood Vine, I'll say this, that if there's a time to pick it, you'll know it, but really, really think hard on why you're picking it, because it's probably worse than what you're going to get out of Leaping Strike. 13. Lunara has what I think might be the best level 13 talents in the game. From top to bottom. Maybe not the best individual level 13 talent, but the best 13 talents that you get to choose from. Let Them Wither is my default #1. And when we go back and talk about the slow that you get from Crippling Spores, which is a 40% slow over 3 seconds, now becomes a slow over 4 seconds that no longer decays. So I now have a 40% slow that doesn't decay for 4 seconds. That is tank levels of slow when you consider that you went Splintered Spear. This is tremendous amount of slows that you're going to get from that. So Crippling Spores, slow duration increase, and no longer decaying is so fantastic in a team fight. This also synergizes well with Talons later, but overall this has massive control in a team fight. I do think that there is a place for Endless Spores where if 2 of them are there, it reduces the cooldown of Nature's Toxin. I feel like, or it reduces the cooldown, reduces cooldown by 4 seconds on this so that you can have more uptime. I still think Let Them Wither is going to have more overall control. Let Them Wither, really good. Now, the other 2 talents here, Greater Spell Shield. If I'm going against a Mephisto, a Pyroblast, Kael'thas, 75 spell armor is OP broken against certain mage casters. I've talked about this a lot. You have to turn this off. When you get Greater Spell Shield, you turn it off the minute you pick it. This is an activatable talent that I use when I need it. If you leave this on and you take a couple ticks of Flame Stomp from Diablo, you've now gotten almost 0 value out of Greater Spell Shield. This is one of the most OP spell shields in the game. 30 seconds, using this to absorb damage, and there's other instances where you're going against, potentially somebody coming in and diving you. This could even theoretically work versus an Illidan Hunt. You just activate this, reduce some of the initial damage. Generally, you're going to be around people at level 13, so that's not normally the case, but Greater Spell Shield is insanely good. If you've ever gone against the Pyroblast Kael'thas, it's like, all right, you can eat 75% of that and be like, that's nothing, man, that's nothing. Greater Spell Shield is fantastic. I love this talent in the right situation. Then there's this talent, Abolish Magic, which is so bizarre if you think about the context. This is a CC removal, not a pre-cleanse, so you have to wait. From a range damage dealer. This removes all dots and disabling effects from them and you. So if you're dotted up by something and your teammate is CC'd, it's kind of crazy to think that this used to be a longer cooldown. They buffed it to be like, please pick this. Lunara has what is similar to Nature's Cure for Malfurion in that you remove the effect after. Abolish Magic can be really good. Going against an ETC, hey, I need to save one person from a power slide. Here we go. I've removed that stun from you. Or a mosh pit. Or found some way. Not only that, but it reduces the disabling effects for 2 seconds after by 50%. Similar to a Wrath of the Berserker from Sonya, to where that's much easier. 1 second stun is now a half-second stun. Abolish Magic has a place. It's another activatable talent that you have to get used to playing. If you're a healer, making this transition should be easy. If you're not a healer and you only like to press buttons to do damage, you're probably going to be like, I'm never picking that because I'm never going to find the use for it. It's really good on 30 seconds. This is actually an insane talent for 30 seconds. Again, it's a situational one when it's based on your healer, on your composition, on the enemy composition, to where you can find real cohesive value of saying this is the perfect moment. Abolish Magic, I still think is really, really good, can be really broken. It's just hard for a lot of people to use. Spell Shield in the right situation. Let Them Wither, still going to be your number one choice for multiple reasons. And one of those reasons is your level 16, your Unfair Advantage. Nature's Toxin deals 60% more damage to heroes that are conveniently slowed, rooted, or stunned. Since you should have stuns, roots, and slows on your team to begin with, but you are your own slow machine. How long? 4 seconds, because you went Splintered Spear and Let Them Wither, generally. And now all of a sudden I've got a 40 seconds or 40% slow for 4 seconds, and Unfair Advantage is going to continue to tick that. I can still auto attack those targets and then continue to press W after the fact, because the downtime on this, when it comes to a 4 second slow, this is an 8 second cooldown. There's only a 4 second downtime, albeit if that means there's no other slows from my front line, a Johanna, something that's going to help those proc. So now Unfair Advantage is a superb talent. It works so well for Lunara. Even if you didn't go Splintered Spear, you still have that slow, so you have the 3 seconds that you're going to get from your base kit. So this continues to help. I do think that there is a case for some of these other ones. Starwood Spear is, if you're fighting certain range targets, it gives you that extra range. 2.75 second auto attack range is good. Again, I don't really like this old school auto attack build anymore. 30% attack speed, not a big fan of this. Again, a lot of your damage is going to be coming from your poison. This does mean you can spread poison more often, but I'm just not a big fan of this. This is a semi-giant killer as well, since you'll be auto-attacking to a 1.5 if they have 3 stacks. Accelerated Contamination. Again, if you went towards this, and this is pretty easy, if 2 enemy heroes are afflicted by Nature's Toxin, this has a cooldown reduction 100% faster, which is pretty quick. If you are going Q at level 7 with Choking Pollen, I think that's when it becomes a pick. Not the other way around. The slow damage is going to be more advantageous than Splintered Spear. Attacking 4 autos, you're going to get more damage from Unfair Advantage from your poison. So a lot of that is, I think, dependent. I could go into a lot of the situations where these could be good. I think these are situational at best, where Unfair Advantage is always going to be good, no matter what, because you're going to be getting, hopefully, these slows and extra bonus from your team, as well as your own setup CC. At level 20, I don't really like Boundless Stride. I think Intensifying Toxin is just the way to kind of push you over the top. If you went into a fight and you queued before you got there, so it's auto with your Splintered Spear proc, Q auto, you now have 2 stacks, and if you press W, W conveniently is going to help you add stacks and get slows on there so that you can add more stacks on the people that you didn't get hit. Intensifying Toxin gives you more single target damage. Ask any tank in the game that's willing to stand there and just take auto after auto after auto of Lunara late game. It's not easy. It doesn't matter what tank you are. You'll continue to get withered down, withered down, withered down. There's nothing you can really do about it. I do like Galloping Gait at times. This isn't a huge movement speed boost in a dire situation in level 20. Level 20 means you have big explosive fights where everybody has all their buttons and their level 20 talents, and it's insane. It can also be used if you just hit 20 and the enemy team is like 18 or 19 and you're chasing down a kill, because that kill is going to end the game. Again, situational. I do think Galloping Gait is okay in certain situations, but for 90+% of your games, Intensifying Toxin is where it's at. Boundless Stride, this does give you lower cooldown reduction on this. It's not by much, but it also means you can use this on your allies. if you have to leap on your allies, think about what type of situation you're in. Normally, if you're leaping on your allies, it's probably to get out of there. And if you went in, you should have a plan to get out with your second leaping strike. And if you went in and you don't have another leaping strike to get out, shame on you unless you know your team's going to get those kills. So Intensifying Toxin, just fantastic talent at level 20. And everything about Lunara can synergize Natural Perspective for the vision. Either of these at level 4, but the synergy is all about Splintered Spear, spreading to a lot of targets, let them wither for a 4-second slow into Unfair Advantage, which means even more damage from hitting all those targets, into Intensifying Toxins, which obviously helps a lot in the late game because you're hitting a lot of people for a lot of stacks, and you just got to stay busy. A move. And if you're not doing that, pick a different hero or learn to A move in practice mode. Again, situational here. I don't mind choking Pollen versus a couple of melee compositions. If I'm going against a Kerrigan comp and I'm afraid of them getting on me, do I want to balance the slow? Do I want to be able to spread this to a lot of targets? Do I want to focus a lot of damage on heavy frontline? There is a valuable place, I think, for choking Pollen. Again, it's situational against the enemy comp. Even if it's against maybe, say, a triple ranged, maybe you can focus down the tank. Don't be afraid to auto-attack tanks. Don't be afraid to move around there. Abolish Magic, pretty sick talent. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't really pick it a lot because I'm relying on carrying the team, and that's where my other talents come in, and that's where it really can excel at. I do think Lunara does have a healthy balance of talents that give you different stuff. If you're going against a Lucio, if you're going against a Stukov, I don't mind choking Pollen, getting more single target damage. The one thing that hurts an AoE healer the most, like an Ariel, like a Lucio, like a Stukov, is being forced to use an AoE heal on a single target. And those are all things you can look and identify. If I see a Lucio, who most Lucios go reverse amp, if I see a Lucio, think about amp it up on its cooldown. It's a long cooldown, just like bio kill switch is a long cooldown. I can visually see these things where Lucio, Stukov have long cooldown reductions, which means that single target heal, that's a big AoE heal in general. That's when me and my team can now be like, all right, their big heal is down. We can force this fight. It's a little bit harder to get teams of 5 to recognize that as it is. But you can force that out if you are a Lunara by going into more single target damage. I would say choking Pollen better than Wild Vigor. The basic attack damage is not where your damage is at. It's more in getting that poison damage. This becomes a skill shot ability to get that damage, which, remember, with Splintered Spear, you don't have to hit the target to get the 4 auto attacks. You can just cast it anywhere on the ground if you want. Ideally, you would hit a target with it. But these are all different things you can use as Lunara. I think she has good diversity for different situations, but her base build with that Splintered Spear into the extra slow, into Unfair Advantage, is what makes Lunara one of the best. And ever since they changed the scaling, Lunara's popularity and win rate has skyrocketed. If you ever want to pick this versus an Uther, an Ana Tyrande, you already have an advantage versus these heroes because they can't deal with the AoE healing. That's when she really shines. But there are different ways now for Lunara to really get there. And that's Lunara in a nutshell. And if you can A move, Lunara should be a hero you're looking at right now. So there you go.